People often argue that Ghostbusters 2 is just a lazy remake. And every time I hear people say that, I get this feeling like a river of pink slime rising up under my chair. Because they're wrong. They're just completely flat out wrong. This film ain't some lazy ass repeat, it's a reckoning. It's the hangover after the party that was the 1980s. Yeah, sure, you got the same characters, you got the same jumpsuits, you got the same gadgets. But the mood has changed. The laughter's a little bit forced now, the city's colder. If the first Ghostbusters is a victory lap for Reagan era capitalism, a film about private enterprise solving the supernatural, then Ghostbusters 2 is the awkward morning after, when the bill's due and the world's running on bad vibes. It's about how cynicism spreads and how anger literally poisons the city. And yet, it's one of the most hopeful sequels ever made. Because beneath all the slime and sarcasm, it's saying something revolutionary for its time. That maybe, just maybe, we'd be better off if we stopped trying to sell each other things and actually started trying to save each other again. Right then, before we go any further, as usual, this is just my personal view. It's not the gospel, it's not the one true reading of this. It's just what happens when you're hand a half-cut Londoner, a Blu-ray and far too much time to think. And if you see something different in this film, then good. That's the point. That's how culture stays alive. I ain't here to tell you what to think, I'm just here to tell you what I saw. And why I think Ghostbusters 2 deserves another look. Right, now that's out of the way, we can get on with the rest of the video. Ghostbusters 2 was one of those sequels that shouldn't exist, but kinda had to. Columbia had been begging for it since '84, but the cast, they just didn't want to do it. Bill Murray had practically disappeared after filming Scrooged. Dan Aykroyd was just off chasing UFOs or some shit. And Harold Ramis, well, he was just tired of playing the cleverest man in the room. And yet, when the suits promised them millions of dollars and complete creative control, they came back. Not for money, but to prove the point that they could capture lightning in a bottle for a second time. Filming began early on in 1988 and you can really feel the winter in that movie. The cold exterior, the breath hanging in the air. That's not Hollywood fog. That's New York in February, cold and miserable. The slime itself, the iconic rivers of pink slime, absolute nightmare. It's not CGI, it's a mixture of methyl cellulose, the stuff they previously used to make all the fake vomit in The Exorcist, mixed with KY jelly and food dye. Apparently it absolutely stunk to high heaven and the smell just lingered for weeks. And Vigo the Carpathian, he was played by a man called Wilhelm von Homburg, who was a German heavyweight boxer and in true method acting style decided to make life hell for everybody on set. He was so intimidating that when Ivan Reitman decided that he was going to get his voice dubbed over and drafted Max von Sydow in to do the voice, nobody at the time had the bottle to tell him. So in true Hollywood style, he only got to find out at the premiere, where apparently he went absolutely fucking mental, getting up and shouting at the screen that this wasn't his voice. Now, I'm going to commit an act of blasphemy here and probably get myself cancelled. I think the soundtrack to this film is much better than the original. I think the Bobby Brown song On Our Own is much better than the Ray Parker Jr. song, even if it did nearly tank the film's release. Because Bobby Brown's On Our Own was written in only 2 weeks. Columbia wanted something contemporary, something urban, something radio friendly. So Bobby Brown delivered. But he also demanded a cameo in the film. You can spot him outside the Mayor of New York's mansion, where he ad-libs the line about wanting a proton pack for his younger brother. According to every critic from 1989 up until today, Ghostbusters 2 is just a rehash. It's the same film again, just a little bit louder and a lot more pinker. The story goes like this. The boys are washed up, nobody even believes in ghosts anymore. A spooky new threat appears, the city's in danger. Cue montage, cue slime, cue wisecracks, and it all ends with another big set piece where New York comes together and cheers them on. On the surface, yeah, that's what happens, but that's the trap, isn't it? Because Ghostbusters 2 looks like Ghostbusters 1, wearing a different suit, the official narrative ends up like this. The first film was lightning in a bottle, a perfect mix of horror, comedy and swagger. The sequel was The Hangover. The tone's off, the pacing's weird and Bill Murray looks like he wishes he was somewhere else. Or the studio rushed it and the magic wasn't there. That's the version everybody accepted. The critics in '89 said roughly the same thing. It's a reheat of yesterday's meal. Gene Siskel said it felt like watching your favourite band play the same set list 2 tours in a row. Variety said it was slick, empty and soulless. Even fans have repeated the same mantra for decades now. All like, yeah, it's alright, but it's not the first one. But the thing is, when you really look at what people mean by that, it's not about the filmmaking, it's about the feeling. Because Ghostbusters 2 came out 5 years after the original, and those were 5 huge years. And the world had completely changed. The Cold War was coming into the final furlong, Wall Street had been wobbling all over the place, and the party atmosphere of mid-80s pop culture that had just curdled into cynicism by that point. Suddenly the idea of 4 grown men running a private ghost catching business didn't feel charming, it felt dated. The critics didn't want another victory lap for capitalism, but they also didn't want sincerity, because by 1989 irony was in and everybody was just too cool to care. So when this film arrived with its pink slime and sentimental message about love and cooperation, audiences just didn't know what to do with it, because it wasn't cynical enough to be hip and it wasn't edgy enough to be punk. It was earnest. And in the late 80s, earnestness, well, that was the biggest sin of all. And that tension runs right through the film. The first Ghostbusters is breezy. It knows it's cool. It's got that smirk that says, we're hustlers, man, we're taking on the system. The sequel opens up with Ray and Winston doing kiddies' parties for a bit of petrol money, while the children remind them just how irrelevant they are. That's not confidence. That's embarrassment. That's the film outrightly telling you that the joke's gone stale. Another classic take on this film is that it's a bad film because the villain is weak in this film. Vigo the Carpathian, well, he's no Gozer, is he? Yeah, true. Gozer had style. Gozer was neon and attitude. Vigo's just some commie oil painting that wants to eat a baby. But that's kind of the point. The glamour is gone. This isn't some god from another dimension. It's a relic full of decay and resentment. It's a metaphor for the entire 80s decade winding down. The critics also had a whinge about the jokes not being as sharp, complaining that the script felt neutered, safer, and had all the rough edges sanded off for a family audience. And again, they're half right. The first film had this real anarchic kind of energy to it. The second one is a bit cleaner, but that's by design. The tone changed because the world had changed. The heroes were older, they were wiser, they'd tasted fame, fortune, lawsuits and regret. The movie feels hungover because it is. One of the biggest and worst takes I hear about this film is that, well, it shouldn't exist. There's no reason for it. People say that it's just proof that Hollywood can't leave a good thing alone, that it's just a cynical cash-in. But here's the funny thing, because if you watch this film through modern eyes, it's just not cynical enough to be a cash-in. The film's too weird, it's too sentimental, it's too sincere to fit in that role. It's not just trying to sell toys, it's trying to sell hope. But you can see why people didn't get that at the time. The 80s were built on the idea of individual power. I've got mine, you go and get yours. Ghostbusters 2 though turns around and says, actually, no, we've got to do this together. That message must have hit like a cultural brick in '89. It's why Bobby Brown's On Our Own gets dismissed as just some other product placement tie-in, when in reality it's the film's thesis statement. The clue's right there in the title, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Because here's the thing, all these takes, the lazy sequel, the softer script, the weaker villain, they all do exist, you can point to them on the screen, but they only tell half the story. The other half, the half nobody wanted to see, is that this film really isn't trying to be Ghostbusters 1 again. It's reacting to it. It's the same city, it's the same people, but everything's different. The optimism's gone, the cracks are showing, and the slime is literally what is festering beneath the American dream. And that's why the critics couldn't see this in the film, because Ghostbusters 2 isn't a sequel to a film, it's a sequel to an entire era. But before I move on any further with this, let's make a quick pit stop If you've made it this far, you're clearly one of the good ones, so do us a favour, hit the like button and drop us a comment, and maybe, if you really like it, you can share the video. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. I'm an insane Cockney hooligan that just won't shut up about proton packs and post-war trauma. I like to make deep dives on classic science fiction. Sometimes I even make deep dives on British science fiction. And if you like that sort of thing, you can hit the subscribe button. So here's where I think everybody gets Ghostbusters 2 wrong. Because yeah, it repeats the formula, yeah, it softens the edges, but that's not laziness, that's intent. The first Ghostbusters was about hustlers, a set of entrepreneurs that had monetised the afterlife. It was a film born of Reagan's America, an era where even ghost removal could be privatised. That message was crystal clear. Start a business, sell salvation, and if you do it with enough charisma, people will cheer you on. But by the time Ghostbusters 2 come out in 1989, that dream had gone sour. The boys ain't all conquering heroes anymore. They're all washed up and they're doing children's birthday parties. The American dream has curdled. The free market heroes of the first film, well, they're yesterday's men. This isn't a movie about starting something. This is a movie about starting again. The first film says, we've got the tools, we've got the talent. The second one says, we've got to find the faith. And that's why this film's so misunderstood, because it's about belief, about rediscovering purpose when the world has moved on. The slime running under New York isn't just a plot device, it's a metaphor for everything that was festering underneath the surface of the West in the late 1980s. It's greed, it's cynicism, it's apathy, it's political division. It's a film that looks at the world that created Ghostbusters 1 and says, right, this is what happens when the hustle runs out of gas. Because the solution this time isn't technology, it isn't capitalism. The proton packs don't work. The Ghostbusters brand isn't enough. It's literally positivity that saves the day. The slime responds to emotion, to kindness, to cooperation. This film is literally the first anti-Reagan blockbuster. It quietly says that the old tools, the weapons of ego, profit and bravado, can't fix this. We have to reconnect. We have to care again. Even that throwaway line from Egon about him not making Nikes big enough for the Statue of Liberty, that's a wink to the same thing. It's saying consumerism can't help you, because you can't buy salvation. Using the Statue of Liberty itself is absolutely genius, because in the first film, New York gets saved by private enterprise. In the second film, it's saved by the literal embodiment of collective hope. It's the shared spirit of a city that's lost faith in itself. And to get her moving, they don't use weapons, they use music, they use joy, they use soul. And that song wasn't just randomly chosen, it's the counterpoint to the whole decade. It's saying, you want transcendence? You want something to believe in again? Start with love, start with community. It's the exact opposite of the first film's ideology, and it's played completely straight. Because there is no irony, there's no wink, it's just pure optimism. Which ironically enough is what got the film dismissed, because by 1989, optimism wasn't cool. And yet, somehow, that's what makes the film work now. You watch that sequence today, the Statue of Liberty strolling through the streets in New York, while the crowd below sings Auld Lang Syne, and it hits completely differently. It's a wonderful life for the post-Reagan world. George Bailey was saved by community. The Ghostbusters are saved in exactly the same way. They've been to the bottom, they've been bankrupted, mocked, exhausted, and they realised the only way out was together. It's the most human moment in a film series dedicated to sarcasm and slime. And when the people of New York get together and start singing, it's not just cheesy, it's spiritual. It's finally a bit of collective joy after a decade of individualism. And yeah, maybe it's a bit naive, but it's sincere. And in 1989, sincerity was radical. And here's exactly why earlier on I stated boldly that I think On Our Own is much better than Who You Gonna Call, because Who You Gonna Call is an anthem for the Reagan years. The lyrics are catchy, individualist and transactional. And if that song is the anthem of the Reagan era, then Bobby Brown's On Our Own is the answer to it. It's the antidote to all of this. It's the 1989 remix of American Optimism. It says we can't just call somebody up anymore, we've got to step up ourselves. Yes, we've got to take control, but we've got to do it together. It's not I ain't afraid of no ghost, it's we're not going to make it on our own. And that's what makes the song genius. It sounds like a swaggering pop single, but underneath, It's quietly revolutionary. It's anti-materialist in the most mainstream way possible. Even that verse, too hot to handle, too cold to hold, they're the Ghostbusters and they're in control. It flips the language of dominance into cooperation. The control isn't authoritarian, it's collective willpower. But there is a melancholy running underneath all this. That subtle sadness, that reason the film sticks. Because what it's really saying is that we got our miracle in the 80s. We got all our consumer goods, we got our fame, we got our wealth, and it wasn't enough. And deep down we knew it. That's why the film ends not in triumph, but in warmth, in gratitude. It's not victory, it's relief. It's thank God we still have each other. And maybe this is why we didn't get a sequel to it in the 90s. Because the world didn't take the film's advice. The optimism we had for the 90s faded. The decade crashed into cynicism, irony and another cycle of disillusionment. Ghostbusters 2 ends on a message that maybe, just maybe, humanity is worthy of redemption, but only if it remembers how to care. And history kinda said, nah mate, we're too busy. But that's what makes this film powerful now. Watch it today in a world that's exhausted and jaded, and it feels like a message from the past, saying you can fix this, just not alone. It's a film that believes in us, even if we didn't. And that's why for all of the chaos, for all of the flaws, I would take Ghostbusters 2 over a dozen slicker and emptier sequels. Because this one, this ridiculous, sentimental, slime-covered sequel, well, it's got heart, and it's not afraid to show it. So yeah, Ghostbusters 2, a film that was written off as just the same but a little bit worse, might actually be one of the most quietly meaningful blockbusters of all time. It's a story about second chances, not just for the Ghostbusters, but for us. About rediscovering our better natures after a decade that told us that compassion was weakness and greed was good. You can feel the weariness in every frame of that film, because it's the same fatigue that we all feel nowadays. We've had our golden ages, we've had our bubbles, we've had our heroes, we've had the gadgets, we've had the toys, we've had the slogans, and maybe we're standing where the Ghostbusters were in 1989, wondering if we've got anything left worth fighting for. That's what makes the film powerful, because it reminds us that there is something left worth fighting for. It's called hope. It's called each other. The slime may still be there, but so's the cure. Anyway, that's my take. But what about you lot? Was Ghostbusters 2 unfairly dismissed? Or is it as bad as people say it is? Drop your comments down below, because I read every single one of them, even the ones calling me a madman. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching, and consider hitting the old like and subscribe button for me. It really helps the channel out in the algorithm. And until the next time, remember, be kind, be curious, and for God's sake, don't cross the streams.
Sounds like the end of the world. Flames dancing